Megacities have a lot of problems, and I want you to take a look at this graph. It shows people flooding from rural areas into urban areas at an unpredicted rate. And by the year 2050, over 70% of the world's population is projected to live in cities. Most of them megacities that are simply not prepared for it.
After 6,000 years of urbanism, cities are becoming larger and larger. Every single city is continuing to draw in more and more people.
We have congestion, crime, inequality, insecurity, a housing crisis, and just an endless array of problems that comes up in cities like this. And I just kept wondering, what is the root cause of all of this? And can it actually be fixed? So a few months ago, I started asking, why do some cities work and the rest just fail? And almost everyone gave me the same answer. Rich cities work and poor cities don't. Case closed. And I was like, okay, cool, that makes sense. And honestly, I would have been satisfied with that. Until I looked at cities like Kigali, Kotiba, and Tallinn, cities in low-income countries that are genuinely better places to live in than cities like Houston or Lagos, for example. These are cities with far more wealth flowing through them. So, if you're someone like me, you know there's something really weird going on here. Something we don't really talk about enough, and something that shows that these broken cities actually reveals a bigger story about who benefits from it being broken, even if that means real people pay the price. This is an investigation into the real problems of these humongous cities. To find out what's really broken, who benefits from it, and why fixing it matters more than we think.
Homelessness is one of the largest societal
the
issues
housing
in the United
crisis
States.
keeps worsening. Do something about this! Do something about this
Traffic
situation!
congestion.
Traffic congestion, 10 hours in traffic on a daily basis.
It doesn't stop. It's crazy.
But first, what the fuck are megacities? A megacity is a city with more than 10 million people living in it. That might sound basic, but that's more than the population of some entire countries. Almost the entire population of Norway and Finland combined. You see, cities on their own have their own problems. Now, a megacity takes these problems and amplifies them by multiple folds. So here's the thing everyone accepts. 27 out of the 33 biggest megacities in the world are all in developing countries. Developing countries can't build good infrastructure, therefore broken cities. Simple. Well, that's not entirely true. And I believe it is this chart right here that makes people drive the conclusion that money is the real problem. And don't forget, many of these cities in already developed countries still face similar problems. So at this point, I could suspect that it wasn't really money. But to understand why it is not just a money problem, we have to go back in time to when modern city designs were first pioneered. It is the 1920s, just after the First World War. Paris was super crowded, it was polluted and deteriorating. Then came an architect and planner named Le Corbusier. He looked at all of Paris' problems and created several city plans to heal Paris from its problems. Le Corbusier looks at this chaos and goes, you know what, let's just delete the entire city and start afresh. His plan was to separate everything into very strict zones. He believed that this would create order and harmony by separating all the different functions within a city. Basically, houses here, offices there, and utilities over there. From above, it looks perfect, organized and efficient, like a perfectly designed machine. Except This system and design had a flaw because humans aren't machines. Here's what actually happens when you design a city like this.
If you separate all of these functions, you get dead zones throughout the day. You go to work during the day, you come back home during the evening, and if you have to work late, walking in this office area becomes kind of dangerous because the streets are dead. Same with the residential areas. During certain hours, there's like nobody on the streets. All the activity, like restaurants or bars that would be open late, are in a separate zone.
So if this right here is a problem on a small scale like this, on a megacity scale, this becomes the source of many problems that creates even more problems for the people in the city. Because the design makes everything so far apart, people have to travel longer distances, and now we have to dedicate more and more space to cars alone.
And it was over that period that we became locked in a never-ending cycle of ever-expanding car infrastructure. Here's what happened. We started giving more space to cars, expanding roads to 4 lanes and 6 lanes, and then the shops along those roads want to accommodate drivers, so they add parking. And now we have to space the shops a little further apart. But walking and biking now becomes much less pleasant going by all these parking spaces and far apart shops, so more people choose to drive, and now we need more roads and more parking. And then the cycle repeats over and over again until we reach today, where nearly 50% of the space in our downtowns is solely dedicated to cars.
So by designing all the land uses to be so far apart, it makes roads and parking lots take over the urban space and makes cars the only accessible means of transport around the city. Not by choice, but by force, because it is just inevitable. And that right there creates inequality for those who don't want to drive or those who can't afford to even own a car.
For me, it seems like you're either rich or you're either poor in this city. It's crazy. There's no in between from what I've seen.
In a place like this, if you're too poor to drive a car, then you're literally forgotten about. There's no excuse for this. If you have enough room for 7 lanes of car traffic, then you have enough room for a sidewalk.
Everything is just big. Everything's big. Tell me why a road has 7 to 8 lanes, sometimes 9 lanes. Like, it doesn't make sense.
And I have absolutely zero patience for apologists for this kind of car-centric, anti-human design.
And those who can afford to own a car or want to drive, they suffer the same fate. Road congestion. Road congestion is literally one of the biggest problems we have in megacities around the world today. And I know it is easy to think this problem just comes from not having enough roads, or roads simply not being big enough. But that's wrong. Let me explain. What you see right here is the city of Huston. And the Katy Freeway in Huston was a traffic nightmare in the 1950s.
Houston's notorious traffic jams.
And when highways get congested, what do? We add more lanes, we make it wider. So Huston did exactly that, spending $2.8 billion of taxpayers' money to do so. And at 26 lanes, they finally hit the world record, widest freeway ever, with one of the largest car-centric road network in the world. But there's just one problem. After this expansion, congestion actually got worse. So how is that possible? Why cities like Amsterdam and Copenhagen, with smaller roads, still has little to no congestion at all? Why? Why is that? It all comes down to variety. You see, one thing I've learned up to my 4th year studying city planning in the uni is that no matter how efficient your road is, if there is no variety in the transit system, there will always be congestion because you have the entire population depending on just one means of commuting around the city. So at that point, it's just inevitable.
When our transportation system is so reliant on highways and private automobiles, there's almost no way around it because that's the system that we've created.
This is Kyle Shelton, an urbanist based in Houston.
The endless reduction of congestion, should that be the driving policy question for a lot of our transportation funding?
So a city that is designed for just cars will eventually have a lot of these problems, because when the incentives to drive increases as there is no any other means to commute around the city, congestion gets back to about the same or even worse than it was. And then the cycle repeats as the city decides to add more and more lanes, spending billions of dollars of public funds on roads and their maintenance.
Building more highways may provide some short-term relief, and it's easier than most infrastructure projects to get federal funding to do a highway expansion.
Therefore, ending up with a slightly higher congestion cost per person. So this guy, Corbusier, his idea for cities still inspired a lot of development throughout the world and had a huge impact on how cities are being designed today, either directly or indirectly, and every single one became known for all of these problems. So wait a minute, it's not just a money problem. These cities, rich and poor, are all using the same broken design from the 1920s. Meanwhile, Tokyo does the opposite. They mix everything together: houses, shops, offices, and parks, all on the same street, with variety of public transit systems. And it works at 37 million people. And we have cities like Huston and Lagos and many more, with similar population sizes, but have a lot of these problems because they still follow the 1920 car-centric design.
Because it's not just about the infrastructure, it's also about individual behaviors, it's about where job opportunities are located, and most of our cities have now been constructed in this way where the car is the prime mode.
So in my mind, I was like, okay, this isn't about money, not really even about the design, because we know they know a better system exists, a better design exists, the framework exists, but nothing is changing. And that's what blew my mind. Like, if they know what works, if cities like Tokyo figured it out, why is there no incentive for other cities to change? Why are they still using this broken blueprint that clearly doesn't work? And this is where I started finding answers. Follow me here, because once you understand this, you will have clarity on why these cities are always broken. Congestion, crime, inequality, insecurity, the housing crisis, and just an endless... In a typical car-dependent city, over 60% of the land is dedicated to roads and parking. Not homes, not hospitals, not offices. Roads and parking lots. Sit with that for a second. And now, ask yourself, who benefits from a city being designed like that? Not the person spending 3 hours in traffic, not the person facing a housing crisis, and definitely not the family that can't afford to own a car and has nowhere to walk, even if they tried. So, who? And that's when I realized that it is actually something much more deeper. Something we don't really talk about enough, and something that shows us the incentives that certain people in the dark syndicates have to keep these cities broken, because it benefits them. Yes, I'm going to be calling them the dark syndicates. I think that name is... Car manufacturers need people to buy cars. Oil companies need people to burn fuel. Highway construction companies need contracts to keep building and maintaining roads. And parking lot developers need land dedicated to their lots. And these right here are just some of many. And by the year 2050, over 2.5 billion people will move into cities. Most of them mega cities that are simply not ready for this. Lagos could hit 60 million, alongside various megacities around the world, projected to hit record-breaking numbers. Therefore, if we are using this same broken blueprint, we will end up with a city that has nothing to do with the collective good and lots to do with individual and corporate wealth. And that will ultimately bring us to the dystopian future that cyberpunk wonders about, where billions of people are trapped in broken cities, in cities that take more from them than it gives. There are entire industries, massive, politically connected, and deeply embedded industries, whose revenue is built around car dependent, sprawling cities. And changing this system means fighting all of that. But the painful part is that a lot of planners and architects actually dedicate their lives to making research that can solve a lot of these problems. But when they come around with a better idea, a better policy, a better system, they get blocked. I found cases where communities try to implement better designs, mixed-use neighborhoods, better public transit, more green and public spaces. But they get shut down, not because it wouldn't work, but because they threaten the dark syndicate benefits. So the people living there, they suffer the consequences. So, here's what I've learned after months of investigating this. Megacities in developing countries aren't broken because they are poor. They are literally megacities, and they are that big because there is money and opportunities there that attract people there in the first place. So, there is money there for sure. They are broken because they are using a design, a system, and policy that we know doesn't work, that benefits certain individuals and not the people. But nobody has the incentives to change. Strict zoning creates dead zones, segregation and urban sprawl. That creates car dependency, that creates congestion, road accidents and pollution. And don't forget, many of these cities lack public transit systems, which then creates inaccessibility and inequality, and on and on and on. So you can see how these problems creates more problems that snowballs into more and more problems for the city. These aren't separate problems. They are all connected and they are all traced back to the same root cause. We are designing cities for profit, not for people. We are designing cities for cars, not for people. We are designing cities for the dark syndicates, not for people. And this reveals a bigger story, not just about our built environments and cities, but about how the world works, how things stay broken, not because it can't be fixed, but because it's been broken benefits certain individuals. Now listen, I want to be clear. This is some conspiracy theory. This is actually horribly predictable. What this is certain individuals, wealthy and powerful individuals, protecting their profits. You've got old oil companies, car manufacturers, highway construction companies, old firms, and old political relationships with high rates of bureaucracy and corruption, all with the incentives to keep the status quo.
A government that genuinely does not care about them. And that's definitely a choice. They refuse to give us water, we dug boreholes, we made electric water sources. They refuse to give us electricity, we bought generators, we bought inverters, we installed solar panels. They refuse to subsidize fuel, we left our cars at home and started jumping buses and flying bike.
And if we're being very honest, the transportation system in Lagos is a disappointment, to say the least. And I hope it gets better, because this shouldn't be a way of life just because you can't afford a car. It's too chaotic, it's too dramatic, it's too stressful. It's just long because I'm trying to move from one place to another.
And they're going to keep praising our resilience and gaslighting us to continue adapting to suffering because it benefits them.
And we simply fall further victims of old predators who would rather live in fear, letting some lines on map define the horizon of our future than seek to change them. and by changing them, free ourselves. Obviously, that's easier said than done. Obviously, there are a lot of nuance here. And obviously, this is just a YouTube video, not a detailed program on how to solve all the problems that a city has. We don't have all the answers, but there is no answer in fear. So, we should neither have a timid pessimist nor a foolish optimist, because we have every reason to recognize all these problems, but we shouldn't doubt our capacity to overcome them. Once you understand how the system works, once you understand who benefits from it being broken, you can't unsee it. So, that's why this problem matters more than we think. Because at the end of the day, what we're talking about are people's lives. So, next time you see footages of struggling megacities, just know it's not because the city doesn't have enough money. It's not because a better system or design doesn't exist. It's because there are certain individuals that benefit from these problems that don't want things to change. One, two, three. Connect it. Alright. Okay.
Hi.
Thank you so much for watching. This has been a really fun, serious, and fascinating topic to dive deeper on. And I had a lot of fun making it, even though it took me hundreds of hours to make. But you made it to the end of the video, so you're welcome to our little corner of the internet. On this channel, we talk about the science, design, and the psychology of the built environment. You see, doing this work takes time, resources, and editorial independence. And I make them alone. There is no team. So, if the idea of this channel sounds like something you would be interested in, I invite you to consider subscribing. It is totally free and it helps the channel. But if you also want to stick around for more of this, you can check out my video on cyberpunk cities. I mentioned that word earlier in this video, so if you are curious as to what cyberpunk cities actually mean, you would love it. It's actually a video I made a couple of years ago, quite faceless but very visual, and the soundtrack, actually one of my favorites. But with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and with that, I'll see you in the next one.